everyone, and thanks for tuning in to BEaTS Research Radio. My name is Hallie Arnott. I'm a biomedical engineering master's student at the University of Ottawa, and I'll be your host on today's episode. As you might be aware, we're normally streaming from a lab at the University of Ottawa Heart Institute, but for now we're going to use our online platforms to help communicate science to the community. Today we're also switching it up a bit, and we'll be speaking about communication in science and communicating science effectively to the community. Today, we have no better person to speak with us about this than an incredible communicator herself and the new executive director of the University of Ottawa Heart Institute Foundation, Lianne Laing. Lianne attended the University of Massachusetts on a full NCAA gymnastics scholarship and graduated with 2 business degrees. She then went on to pursue a career as a television broadcaster with more than 10 years as a sports anchor and almost another 10 years as a CTV morning live host. Stepping away from the television screen but continuing her passion for storytelling and communication, Lianne launched a health and wellness podcast called Living Your Life with Lianne Laing, which now has 140 episodes and guests and listeners from all over the world. Lianne is also a keynote speaker, a brand ambassador, and as I mentioned, most recently, the executive director of the University of Ottawa Heart Institute Foundation. Thank you very much, Lianne, for joining us here today on BEaTS Research Radio.
Thanks, Hallie. Great to kind of be here. And you know what? You introduce yourself, and then I hear like science and engineering, and I'm incredibly impressed just with the brain capacity that you would have as a student. So pretty good for you that you're kind of still in studies and actually doing this as well. So that's kind of cool.
Oh, great. Thank you. I'm very excited to speak to you about your new role, but also what led you up to this role at the Heart Institute with the foundation. So although I was able to touch on a few aspects of your career thus far, do you mind telling us a little bit more about your journey that has led you here?
You know, it's really interesting. It's funny because I think growing up, I wanted to be a detective. And then I went to university to study sports psychology. I ended up graduating with 2 business degrees. And then I spent 20 years working in broadcast television. So, and then I land here. So it was really an interesting turn of events for me. And in terms of just, you know, that feeling of it, life feeling like Groundhog Day. And I had started to feel like that after 20 years in broadcasting, and had the courage, I think, to recognize that there was more for me and that I wanted to grow. I was, you know, in my 40s. I still had the energy to keep going and try something new. And so I really branched out and gave up. Well, it was an easy give up because that getting up at 3:30 in the morning for 10 years to host a morning show, it definitely takes its toll on you. So I was exhausted, and I was ready to move on from that part of my life. Heading into the podcast, health and wellness is something I'm incredibly passionate about, and trying to inspire others to live healthier, happier, more fulfilled lives was my main mission when I was moving into a different part of my life. And so the podcast was really a wonderful thing, and I had amazing guests. I learned so much. I was speaking, I was doing all of these things, and then of course COVID hit. And I was like, you know what, this is okay. With COVID, it was like March. You know, I'm thinking I'm comfortable on a screen. Everything had moved virtual, right? And so this was back to my element. I could host things via Zoom. I could host conferences on this virtual platform. And so I was actually kind of going along quite happily in my new world. And I got this magical phone call out of the blue, someone saying that they were interested in having me come and look into this position at the Heart Institute. And so my first initial thought was, listen, I've hosted thousands of galas and charity events around the city, and I know the donors. I know how much of how much philanthropy plays a role in our city. We have a very generous city. But once I started to put together the pieces of what the foundation needed, of having the communication, of letting the donors, letting the city know what it is that you're doing behind closed doors. I mean, you just came off of a massive $100+ million expansion and build. But what actually happens in that building? What's the science? What's the research? What's the medicine? What are the patient stories like coming out of the Heart Institute? And that became the drawing factor for me to come in and take on this role. So if you had asked me 4 months ago, would I be sitting here talking to you about this? Absolutely not. But I'm also pretty big on the universe has, you know, it has its plan, and sometimes you just have to give in and let it flow. And now I'm like, so enthusiastic and excited about having this role and being here.
Absolutely. You mentioned your podcast, and we mentioned a bit in the introduction, but I had a chance to watch a couple of episodes, and I will definitely be watching more of them. So if anyone is interested in health and wellness, and just listening about what others have to say on the topic, it's a great podcast also, and I encourage our listeners to go and watch there. But also, as you said, with the Heart Institute, what goes on behind closed doors is incredibly important as well, and that's a big part of what the foundation does, is bringing that out into the community and communicating that and fundraising. So what does it mean to you to be appointed to this position?
First off, I'm incredibly grateful and humble for it, in that I'm representing a world-renowned heart institute. You know, when I sit in an office with Dr. Misana and listen to him talk, it's you sit there and you try to inhale and soak in as much information that you can, right? You just listen to the stories and the background, and so you're in this fascinating world as it is, and then you have to understand that there is a community that relies on the Heart Institute. You know, there's an aspect of health and prevention and ways that we can educate people to live healthier lives through diet and exercise, and choosing the right lifestyle that would maybe help prevent you from ever having to need the services at the Heart Institute. But at the same time, heart disease affects so many people. And so it's really understanding that people will be in need of using the University of Ottawa Heart Institute without ever having thought that they would. And I think when I talk to people and I've heard the stories of the life-saving measures that happen here, the people that leave, the alumni, as they say, are changed forever. They've been given the gift of time. And when that happens, I think there's a need to give back. And I think there's an enormous amount of donors who understand the benefit and want to give someone else the same opportunity to have the life-saving work that is being done. And at the same time now, it's about educating others that while it might not have affected their family now, it could in the future, and to be able to have all of the knowledge base, the research, the medicine, the advancements, the procedures, the equipment to be able to do that is where we come in. It's ensuring that the funds and the money from the donors is making its way into the foundation so that we can distribute it back to Dr. Misana and to be able to say, here it is, go and do the work that you need to. And a lot of that right now comes down to, after this massive campaign for the expansion, now comes down to research. It comes down to, let's go back to understand what it is that people are working on, and in my first conversation with Dr. Liu, the enthusiasm is just, it's overwhelming. The excitement that they have in finally people understanding what is really being done and how it is going to change people's lives in the future. That for me is it's an easy sell. It's an easy, let me share this story. Let me tell people what's happening so they have a better idea. So I don't know if that's like a long-winded way of answering the question, but that's where, for me, is where the impact is that I get to share that. And hopefully in return, it comes back to the foundation, which in turn goes back to everyone that's working behind the door.
Yes, definitely. You hit on every single point, and also points that I was going to ask in my next question. I was going to ask about what the foundation does for the institute, and as you were saying, it contributes in for the patients, it contributes for the research, and that's incredibly important. There's just part of the interesting and incredible features of the institute is that they have the research side, but they also have the medicine that is saving lives on the other side of the building. So it's definitely an amazing a place to be, and to see kind of from A to B and all the way down to Z how medicine and science can kind of come together.
It really is. And you know what, I've been here, and I don't know when this is going to air, but at the point that we are recording this, I think that I'm like 4.5 weeks into the job. So coming in, my first point of business was really to meet and understand the 16 members of the team here at the foundation, to understand what it is that they do. And there's a really big difference between those that are in the major gift side and legacy giving, and what happens for people who have really had a deep impact and connection with the Heart Institute. And then to the annual giving, and that's down to people who take part in Heart Month and who make those donations online or who get direct mail and fill out the forms and send them back in. So it was meeting all of those team members, but then it was meeting all of the chiefs of staff. So meeting Dr. Liu and Dr. Coutinho and Dr. Lambert and Dr. Mielens, like Dr. Ruel, like these are fascinating conversations with people. And then sitting through the senior management meetings, and I'm sitting there, and it's interesting because I remember calling my mom afterwards, just because you're introduced into this world of major decision making and statistics and funding and procedures and staffing. And there really is this huge network of incredibly brilliant individuals that keep it going, and that you at the end of the day can see a patient and a family walk out with their family member knowing that. And I look at it, I do, as the gift of time. I didn't have an opportunity for the gift of time. I lost my dad to heart disease, to a massive heart attack just 2 weeks before my wedding. And so I often have said to people, had he made it in time to get to the Heart Institute, life would have been very different. But it's something that I'm very conscious of, is that now I know heart disease is in my family. And so you don't know when it's going to hit, and you want to be able to have access to the best care in the world. And so we're very fortunate here in Ottawa and in surrounding areas, because so many people come to the Heart Institute here, that we have the people, the services and everything ready to go, like the best in the world too. So that's a critical part.
Yes, I'm sorry to hear that, but you are right there. The Heart Institute is world renowned, and we are incredibly lucky to have that institute here in Ottawa. I'd also like to ask about communicating science, because as you were saying, it is a huge community of people that bring what's amazing about the Heart Institute altogether. It's the doctors, but also it's the nurses and the foundation as well. So the foundation does a really important job in communicating, engaging the community with what's happening at the Institute. And I think this year, in many ways, is unprecedented. But one of the ways I think is the way in which we need to communicate medical knowledge and advancements in the medical field to the public. And it's bringing to light how important that is right now, especially. So what do you think is key for good communication? And you were I guess, headhunted for this position. And I think they could clearly see that you are the person for this job. And what do you think is really important for good scientific communication and engaging the community in science?
So in my 20 years of working in journalism, I was never afraid to ask the question that I felt the person sitting at home watching the show was thinking. And oftentimes I would have, and as I was in television, I was interviewing people from the Ottawa Heart Institute and from different hospitals and different scientists that would come on. But oftentimes we need to understand the basic why. Why does your work matter? Why will it affect us? Or how should we care? Or how can you simplify it so that I can understand it in layman's terms? You know, we all have our ability to understand things in our world, so how an artist paints, or how a surgeon uses their hands, or how you are able to look at numbers and science and see it in a very different way than I can. I could get up on a stage and talk to thousands of people, and I was comfortable there. But we all have places that we're able to understand or want to inhale information differently. And I think when it comes to research and science, there's those that are fascinated by the numbers and the quantum aspect of it, and others just need to understand how they need it simplified so that there's a language that I think will relate to them. And I'm hoping that with the experience that I have, that I can bring that out and communicate. Sometimes you have people that don't really communicate it well. And so it's, how can we figure out how this scientist or this researcher can bring out the story and simplify it so that people on the other end can understand it and then go, oh my gosh, that's really interesting. Or now I get it. Or, okay, I see what the point is of why you're doing all of these tests and studies. And that's going to be the critical part, is that there's a relationship of an understanding. And I think at the end of the day, it's always the why. why does this matter, and how is it going to affect me? And if we're able to find that bridge, that gap, to be able to get from one end to another with people going, okay, I get it, then that's going to be, I think, where we're going to find success, because we want to know why you're so passionate about this study, or why you feel 10 years from now it will be a game changer for a medicine, or a game changer in a procedure, or the game changer for this aspect of this innovation that we're doing right now is going to be the new way we're going to do procedures, or the new way to create this medicine. And so that, I think, brings the story together. And I'm hoping between the researchers and the scientists and the storytelling, the people at the end, the donors and the patients, will kind of go, oh, I get it. I get why they need support, or I get why I can survive now because of this. So hopefully it comes full circle.
Definitely. And does it for the foundation? I know these questions, like, since you're new to the position, I'm not sure if this is a question that you might be able to answer for me. But like, how does the foundation communicate that type of research to, like, is there a link? Like, is there maybe an article that kind of goes out every month, or?
Well, there's a ton of communication, but I think that's where this new transformational generational change comes in, with me coming in as the new executive director. It's understanding people are getting their information differently. We have a wonderful Foundation Connection magazine. I mean, the staff that the team here has done an amazing job, but we're also looking at the next generation. There is a new generation of young entrepreneurs, of family members, of members of families who have been part of legacy giving here, and so it's about kind of having an opportunity to work with both, to understand why the stories matter, and then how to generate that into future funds, and to be able to say, this is what's happening, and going back to our donors and giving them the information. So we do have the Foundation Connection. We have the direct mail that goes out with all of the different programs that we're doing. But at the same time, let's branch out. We're going to go more into podcasts, storytelling, video, messaging on Facebook and Instagram, stories to Twitter and to LinkedIn. And it's utilizing how to get these messages out to a different segmented population, to where we can reach them. The younger generation is going to be on Instagram. Did you know? Are you aware? This is what's happening. Here's an image. Here's a graph. Here's some, top 10 list of how you can take better care of yourself. On Twitter, here's an amazing story of Dr. Lou's research with COVID. And that goes out through the Twitter and LinkedIn network. So it's about finding the people and where they're looking for their information. From a foundation standpoint, is getting that information out so that people recognize what's happening. So at the end of the day, it turns back around and says, they need some help here, or this work needs to be done, and how can we make some donations to be able to make that happen? It's hopefully making it work in a full circle.
Full circle.
At the end of the day, right?
Definitely.
Offer value, offer information. At the end of the day, it will come back, because people will be more aware of the work, and then aware that, as always, especially in medicine and in health, funds need to be raised.
And I'm very excited to get those graphics and everything. And I think you hit all the points of what the community wants to see, and what actually engages the younger generations, and now even the older generations. Are like pictures and little catchy
they're on
phrases.
Facebook.
Yeah,
they're on Facebook. Your generation's on Instagram, but it's recognizing that. It's recognizing where you're going for your information.
And these are great ways to kind of get the information out there. But do you see any, what are the challenges that you face or have faced when you're trying to kind of communicate to the community? Are there any main obstacles that kind of come up?
Well, I foresee, because I've only been here for, I haven't been out and doing that. For me, it's just been, I've been the one inhaling all of the information and soaking as much in. I think a lot of the times people just don't see how it affects them. Well, this isn't going to affect me. I don't have heart disease in my family. I'm young. This doesn't affect young people. And so people have these preconceived notions about what they feel is going to be important to them. For me, bottom line, health is your greatest wealth. Without your health, you really there's not much to be able to fully enjoy. And so there will be this a sense of, well, let me just educate you then, or let me tell you why, or let me introduce you to this patient who was 20 and had a heart attack. And like, it's being able to relate information to people who don't think it affects them, and be able to say, maybe not now, but maybe in the future, or this could be a family member. And so it's bringing the importance of, it's real. Heart disease is real. Our health and wellness is real. There are preventative measures you can take to make sure that you live a healthy, happier life. But it's having the opportunity to educate on both spectrums. And so that at this point is the best that you can do, right? Is just hope that you are offering value. Let us offer you the value that will help make your life better at the end of the day.
Yeah, and just like you were saying with the, this doesn't affect me, maybe I'm just going to scroll past, or maybe I won't open this letter. That's kind of, I think, something that is happening with COVID-19 is some people, are thinking, oh, I'm too young, this will not affect me. But with more scientific research coming out on COVID-19, people are now realizing, or scientists and medical professionals are now finding that there can be cardiac impacts after recovering from COVID-19. And a study that was published a few days ago now in the JAMA Cardiology showed that there was cardiac involvement and persisting inflammation in the heart once somebody has recovered from COVID-19. And that kind of suggests that there can be long-term effects on the heart once you've recovered. So findings like this are just going to keep coming, and something like that is really important for the Heart Institute to kind of, think of before, or like to kind of like get the ball rolling before things start happening. So what does that mean for the foundation moving forward?
Well, it means an open communication with understanding the studies that are coming out, understanding what the surgeons and the physicians and the specialists are going to be dealing with, that they might have new patients coming in who may have been COVID, who had COVID and maybe didn't think that there had been damage or lasting effects, of which we are going to be studying this for years to come. I mean, our world is in such a surreal part of understanding what this illness is doing and this virus and the effects on it. And, there's been so much in the last 5 months of, it's not affecting young people. It does. It spreads quickly. It doesn't. I mean, there's so many things that are coming at us, but with everything that comes at us, you almost need to have the science to back it. And so when you have the research that's showing that there is effect to the heart post-COVID, and affecting people that weren't pre-heart issues prior to. These were healthy individuals that didn't have a pre-existing heart condition, and yet they are seeing a weakness and an inflammation afterwards. This matters. Like, this matters to people who are constantly thinking, oh, the COVID's only affecting people with underlying health issues. Well, that's not necessarily the case when it does affect a healthy individual, and then they're coming out of it on the other side with future health conditions. And so there's the science behind it. I think there's going to be tons more studies like the one you just read in this publication. And there will need to be monitoring of so many individuals, and to understand the effects that it will have. And is it a year? Is it 5 years? Is it 10 years? I mean, this will be an ongoing aspect, and people will be interested. This is not a short-term solution. It has affected us financially, mentally. I mean, you think of the domino effect that it has had. So of course it will affect research. It will affect funding. It will affect people's interest to say, my goodness, this could affect me later on. And so it's, as I mentioned, getting that information out, letting our donors know, letting those that are interested in the work that's happening at the Ottawa Heart Institute, let people know this is now top of list. This is now part of Dr. Lou's research team and what they're doing when it comes to COVID, or understanding if certain medications are having an effect or not on individuals. That all has to be done so that we feel safe in what we are taking, and also in understanding, I know with his research, because I've read it, it doesn't have an effect, or it does, but people want to feel educated and safe when they are doing these things. So I think this research, information, and the communication back and forth will be endless, I think, for quite some time to come. Mm-hmm. People are interested.
Yeah, I think so as well. And I think it's great that the foundation is just extremely working with both sides and getting that information out there and getting it out there effectively. And I'm looking forward to kind of seeing some of the stuff that pops up on the social media for the Institute. I know you'll be behind that, so that'll be exciting. I'd like to thank our guests again today and for speaking to us about the importance of communication in science and her new role at the Heart Institute Foundation. I'd also like to thank the BEaTS Research Lab and the University of Ottawa Heart Institute and the Department of Biochemistry, Microbiology, and Immunology at the Faculty of Medicine. Our director is Emilio Alarcon. Thank you for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channels, podcast channels, and our other online platforms. We'll see you again soon with some more science and communication with research.